wanting to join the BRICS nations, understand that is that country requesting to go gold asset backed and joining the quantum financial system. Because you need to realize that the BRICS nations, well, it's BRICS plus now because it's not just the original 5. Now bear in mind, in just the 5 alone, it was 44% of global population. So the BRICS plus nations are all using the quantum financial system. They're all trading with each other with asset-backed currency. So whether it's gold, diamond, oil, silver, gold, they're already trading. That's going on internationally anyway. So when you hear that Texas put the request in to join the BRICS nations independently, that was exciting news, because that's pretty much the first step. Because I've also heard, I don't know how true it is, but I'm waiting to get it confirmed, that the US Treasury will now be based in Texas, not Washington, D.C. anymore. So the US Treasury will be in Texas. So lo and behold, you hear that Texas has actually requested to join the BRICS nations. And now we've heard that there's actually 27 states in the US that put the request to join BRICS nations. That literally means 27 states are going to move to the quantum financial system. So for those saying, I can't see it's happening, it's all happening around you. It's step by step, it's all falling into place. The military have full control of everything. The reason why we're being drip fed it steadily is to wake up the masses steadily, so they don't get shocked by sudden massive change. So we're slowly, progressively see this change come out. But like you've seen, the stuff happening daily and weekly now, whereas before when we was following stuff, we were waiting months for even a slight bit of change, a slight bit of movement. But since the 1st of January, when all the banks got audited to asset backed for Basel 3, Basel 4, then everything has been speeding up and speeding up. We're literally in April, and look what's happened in such a short period of time. So yeah, exciting stuff. Loads happening. Just keep your eyes open and stop watching MSN. Mainstream media is just rubbish. Just stick to searching on TikTok. Brave, someone showed me. I need to start using that. It's another search engine, and DuckDuckGo. And just stay off Facebook. I don't know how long Facebook's going to last, to be honest. I've heard Facebook's going to go. So that should be an interesting change. Speak to you soon.
Right now, more than $7.5 trillion worth of U.S. financial assets could soon be sold off by foreign governments. Countries like China, Russia, Brazil, and many others in Southeast Asia are no longer trusting the U.S. dollar. Instead, they are starting to use their own money because they want control over their economies. They are not making speeches about it. They are taking action. This is not just another market dip or normal recession. In 2025, the U.S. dollar has crashed harder than it has in years. The dollar index has dropped by 10% in the last 5 months, which brings it to levels we have not seen since the 2008 financial crisis. The Federal Reserve is currently holding interest rates steady, but it's almost certainly considering cuts to avoid a full-blown recession. However, these measures will only make things worse, and global investors are increasingly turning away from the dollar. And here's where things really start to change. Currencies in Southeast Asia are now going up in value. The Thai baht, the Indonesian rupiah, and the Singapore dollar have all gone up. That kind of growth hasn't happened since the early 2000s. These countries are making smart moves. They are trading in their own money, setting up new financial systems, and cutting their ties to the dollar. For decades, everyone believed the US dollar would always stay on top. But that idea is falling apart now, not with big announcements, but with quiet shifts in trade deals, real investments, and powerful economic decisions. And if things keep moving in this direction, it might not be BRICS that leads the charge. It could be the central banks of Southeast Asia, which are gaining strength and independence, that finally tip the balance. From 2023 to the first half of 2025, something happened that made many economists sit up and pay attention. China sold over $150 billion worth of United States government bonds. This was not a small adjustment or an attempt to play the markets for short-term gains. Instead, it appeared to be a planned and deliberate move, part of a larger strategy that has been quietly forming over the past few years. At first glance, some Western financial analysts dismissed this action as temporary or unimportant. However, when looking deeper at the trend, it becomes clear that China is not alone. More and more countries, especially members of the expanded BRICS Plus group, including the original 5 along with Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates, have also started reducing their holdings of US government debt. This signals something bigger than just short-term financial reshuffling. It shows a worldwide loss of trust in the American financial system. For many years, the United States used its strong economy and control over global financial institutions to guide the economic decisions of other countries. Groups like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank gave loans to poorer countries, but these loans came with many conditions. Countries had to cut government spending, sell public companies, and open their markets to foreign businesses. These steps were said to help economies grow, but in the short term, they often caused pain. Public services were reduced, and local businesses struggled to compete with international companies. Over time, many countries, especially in Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia, began to feel that relying on the dollar and Western financial systems was hurting them more than helping. In 2025, this frustration has led to real change. Today, more than 43% of African debt is now owed to private lenders in China instead of the IMF or World Bank. Senegal, for example, is working to raise more money through taxes so it won't need to borrow from abroad. Argentina is another example. Its new president, Javier Milei, has made big changes to the economy, cutting government spending and removing currency controls. These changes have helped lower inflation and attract foreign investors again. Many countries are now moving away from using the US dollar in trade. In 2025, many BRICS countries officially stopped using the dollar for trade and started using their own currencies instead. One example is trade between India and Indonesia, which is now done in local currencies instead of the US dollar. Brazil is also distancing itself from reliance on the US dollar. They have created tools like BRICS Pay to allow countries to trade with each other using local money. In Africa, a system called the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System, PAPSS, is helping countries trade with each other using their own currencies, not the dollar. Central banks, the institutions that manage money in each country, are also making changes. In 2025, more banks in Africa and Asia are adding Chinese money, the renminbi, to their currency reserves. This means they are slowly preparing for a future where the dollar is less important. A report from the Official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum, OMFIF, said many central banks expect the dollar's role in global reserves to shrink over the next 10 years. This is why they are moving to gold and ditching the dollar. Trade around the world is also changing. The OECD, a group that tracks the global economy, said in 2025 that growth will slow down to just 2.9% this year and next. Countries are making new trade deals to reduce their risk. Some of these agreements use local currencies instead of the dollar. One example is the deal made between the European Union and Mercosur, which is a group of South American countries. This deal is designed to strengthen trade without relying so much on the dollar. But the most impressive rise against the dollar are the ASEAN currencies, which no one has paid attention to until recently. In April and May 2025, the US dollar lost ground across much of Southeast Asia, and that was a big win for the region. Currencies like the Singapore dollar, Thai baht, Malaysian ringgit, and others all got stronger, signaling a shift in investor confidence. Why did this happen? Experts point to several reasons. First, America's rising government debt made investors nervous. Second, inflation stayed low across Asia, making the region more stable. Third, countries like Malaysia and Indonesia were offering better interest rates. And finally, after Washington introduced new tariffs, investors started to lose trust in US trade policy. The currency moves were no small feat. In April alone, the US dollar fell nearly 3% against the Singapore dollar, ending at 1.31, and then dipped further in May to 1.28, its strongest level in over a decade. A similar pattern played out in Malaysia and Thailand, where the dollar dropped roughly 2.5% each month, ending May at 4.2 ringgit and 32.5 baht respectively. The Philippine peso followed suit, strengthening 2.5% in April and holding steady in May. Even Indonesia's rupiah, which often lags, showed momentum, with dollar falling more than 3% across the 2 months to 16,300 rupiah. So by the end of May, nearly every major ASEAN currency was not just stronger. It was climbing steadily. And this raises a key question. Is this simply a short-term reaction to US troubles? Or are we witnessing Southeast Asia quietly stepping into a more powerful economic role on the global stage? But this surge in currency strength isn't happening in isolation. It's directly tied to a shift in global trade, one accelerated by tariffs. The South Asian countries may have Trump's tariffs to thank. Because of these tariffs, trade between China and the US has dropped sharply in 2025. Companies around the world are now looking for new places to manufacture their goods where it's cheaper and easier to do business. As a result, countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand have become new manufacturing centers. Large global companies, such as Apple and Intel in Vietnam, and HP and Dell in Malaysia, have invested a lot of money in building factories and expanding production in these countries. This increase in foreign investment has helped local economies grow faster. It also made their currencies stronger. At the same time, ASEAN countries are starting to trade more using their own currencies instead of the US dollar. This change helps them avoid currency risk and makes trade within the region cheaper and faster. To support this move, the countries also introduced a shared QR code payment system. This system allows people and businesses in different ASEAN countries to pay each other using their local currencies by simply scanning a code. It's already working in places like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Your investments and the entire global economy. President Trump has fired off tariff letters to 100 countries, threatening 50% penalties unless they accept strict American trade rules. And he says more letters are coming. But instead of falling in line, nations are pushing back, hard, especially BRICS and its growing circle of allies. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent proudly called these letters warnings, not negotiations. But what he doesn't realize is this: the world no longer fears the United States like it used to. The market reaction was instant. The S&P 500 sank. NASDAQ and Dow Jones followed. Analysts now estimate Trump's tariff push could cost the US economy over $432 billion by 2029. For everyday Americans, that could mean an extra $2,100 in annual costs, driven by rising inflation. And while Washington picks trade fights, China is playing chess. In just 8 months, it dumped $12 billion in US debt and bought over 34 metric tons of gold. More than 37 countries are now settling trade in Chinese yuan. BRICS economies have overtaken the G7, and they're not stopping. Even German pension funds are pulling cash from the US and betting on China. This isn't just a trade dispute, it's a power shift, and the US is on the losing end. Are we watching the fall of American dominance in real time? Let's break it down, because what comes next could change everything. This is how it began this week. Scott Bessent stormed out of a Washington briefing room, face red, tie crooked, papers clutched tightly, and he announced that they had finally sent out the 100 letters. These letters, sent to 100 countries, aren't invitations to talk. They're ultimatums, threatening tariffs not seen since the 1930s Great Depression, which is interesting because the last time any US president did this, what we had was the worst recession in history. So why is Trump thinking it will be a good idea this time around? The Peterson Institute warns these could slash US GDP significantly, dragging the world into a trade war nightmare. Yet the response from most nations? Dead silence. Vietnam, Korea, and Mexico, reliant on US exports, might squirm, but 63 countries now trade more with China or India than the US, per Bloomberg's global trade trackers. This isn't defiance, it's indifference. The world is moving on, and America is left shouting into the void. Because of this, there's a 40% chance the US is staring down a recession in the next year, and the culprits are clear. New tariffs, policy flip-flops, and a government shakeup that's sowing chaos. These tariffs are a gut punch. They're jacking up prices, snarling supply chains, and eating away at people's real incomes. Businesses can't plan when tariff plans change like the weather. Maybe the weather is even more predictable at this point. Investments are stalling, and confidence is crumbling. Add to that the federal government's layoffs and the disruptions from the new Department of Government Efficiency, and you've got a recipe for stagnation. This isn't streamlining, it's a wrecking ball. Then there's the fiscal mess. A big legislative package has been passed, but don't expect miracles. Extending the 2017 tax cuts might sound nice, but it's a wash. Any extra tax relief is likely to be overshadowed by spending cuts that'll squeeze demand. The economy's already wobbling. These moves could tip it over. Folks, this is a wake-up call. The US can't afford to stumble blindly into a recession. Businesses need stability, not policy whiplash. Families need relief, not higher prices. If we don't course correct, the ripple effects, job losses, tighter budgets, global uncertainty, will hit hard. Trump's tariff plan is a masterclass in confusion. First, the deadline was July 7th, 2025. Then, August 1st. Now Besant calls it a signal, not a deadline. This flip-flopping isn't strategy. It's chaos. Markets are spooked, with the S&P 500 crashing intraday when Besant's words hit Bloomberg terminals. JP Morgan slashed 2025 global GDP growth forecasts to 1.6%, citing this policy mess. Investors aren't scared of tariffs. They're terrified of the uncertainty. Every delay, every vague threat sends shockwaves through global markets. While Trump swings wildly, BRICS is playing a smarter game. The bloc, now including Egypt and Iran, controls 44% of global GDP, up from 18% in 2000, and could hit 46% by 2026 with new members like Indonesia and Saudi Arabia, per IMF projections. Trump's latest directive, a 10% penalty tariff on anti-American BRICS policies, is a desperate jab at a term so vague it could target NATO allies like Germany for trading in yuan. BRICS isn't just growing, it's building a parallel trade system, free from US control. China's projected to account for 19% of global GDP by 2029, and its commodity-based trade networks are pulling nations away from America's orbit. This isn't a trade spat, it's a geopolitical earthquake, and BRICS is rewriting the map. Vietnam's recent move to join the BRICS Plus alliance as a partner nation sends a clear message. The global South is charting its own course, and it's done playing by someone else's rules. With 20 members and partners now, including rising economies like Nigeria and Vietnam, BRICS Plus has grown into a major global force. According to IMF data, this expanding bloc holds a significant share of the world's economic power, and it's no longer something the West can afford to ignore. This isn't just about numbers. It's about a quiet rebellion against a world order that's long been dictated by a few. The United States has been pushing hard to pull countries like Vietnam into its orbit, dangling promises of trade and investment to pry them away from China. It's called friendshoring, a fancy term for rerouting global supply chains to sideline Beijing in a new Cold War. But Vietnam isn't playing that game. By joining BRICS Plus, Hanoi is doubling down on its non-aligned stance, echoing the spirit of the non-aligned movement from decades past. This should raise alarms in Washington and beyond. These nations want trade, growth, and respect on their terms, not as tools in someone else's strategy. For too long, global powers have assumed they can dictate the rules. But with nearly half the world's economy now in the BRICS Plus corner, the game is changing. The West needs to wake up, listen, and rethink its approach before it's outplayed. The US dollar, which was once the world's unshakable backbone, is crumbling under Trump's recklessness. Bloomberg reports 37 countries have adopted yuan-based trade since 2023, with Brazil and Argentina bypassing the dollar for 40% of their China deals. Foreign purchases of US treasuries plummeted in the last year, with China alone dumping $12 billion. Its fastest sell-off since 2016, while central banks of several countries dumped $48 billion as they moved away from the US dollar. Why? Less trade in dollars means fewer dollars to recycle into US bonds. As Treasury demand collapses, borrowing costs soar, threatening a debt crisis. Meanwhile, China's stockpiling of gold, 34.2 metric tons in 8 months, is because it trusts hard assets over America's political circus. The dollar's grip is slipping, and Trump's tariffs are pushing it off the cliff. To show that nations around the world are no longer scared of the US, China slapped 125% duties on US goods in April, calling Trump's tariffs a joke. Canada hit back with 25% tariffs on $20 billion in US exports, eyeing $85 billion more. So why does Trump think they would not do the same thing again, now that he is renewing the threats of increasing tariffs? Mexico and Brazil are gearing up for their own counterstrikes. with Brazil's President Lula threatening to suspend trade pacts. The Tax Foundation estimates these retaliatory moves could cut U.S. GDP growth by 0.9% in 2025, doubling the economic pain. American importers, reliant on $3.1 trillion in foreign goods, face skyrocketing costs for electronics, batteries, and auto parts. This isn't a negotiation. It's a global backlash, and the U.S. is woefully unprepared for the blowback. So, where does this leave us? Well, you need to brace for an inflation nightmare. President Trump's tariffs are squeezing the life out of America's poorest families, and it's time we sound the alarm. Yale's Budget Lab just dropped a bombshell report showing how these tariffs are hammering low-income households the hardest. The bottom 10% of earners are losing 2.5% of their disposable income, money they barely have to spare. That's not just a statistic, it's a gut punch to folks already scraping by. The report lays it bare. Tariffs act like a regressive tax, hitting the poor far worse than the rich. While the wealthiest 10% shrug off a 1% dip in their income, about $5,000, pocket change for them, the poorest families are losing $2,200 a year. That's rent, groceries, or medicine for people living paycheck to paycheck. Consumer prices are up 1.3%, and everyday essentials like clothes, shoes, and cars are skyrocketing. Footwear costs 31% more, and new vehicles? Try an extra $6,000. For families pinching pennies, these aren't just numbers, they're impossible choices.
On the situation in South Africa. The report was published by the Bureau on Democracy, Human Rights and Labour within the State Department in Washington, D.C. after having visited South Africa and having had a variety of engagements with stakeholders in South Africa and, of course, investigating the matter on their own behalf. The report concludes that there was a severe deterioration of the human rights situation in South Africa over the last year, that the human rights situation has significantly worsened. It describes the Expropriation Act in South Africa as substantially worrying. It finds that the economic freedom fighters are encouraging farm attacks, and it concludes that the Afrikaner people and other ethnic minorities are being targeted as a result of the deterioration of human rights in South Africa. Now, just a month ago, I was in Washington, D.C. on behalf of Lex Libertas after we published a report entitled Reclaiming Freedom. The report published by Lex Libertas explains that the crisis in South Africa could be summed up under three headings. Firstly, a very destructive policy framework. Secondly, general state failure. And thirdly, the persecution of minorities. Our report goes on to conclude that the underlying problem is that the South African government has become significantly detached from realities on ground level, and that the underlying solution ought to be a decentralized political system. During this trip to Washington, I engaged with a variety of stakeholders on behalf of Lex Libertas, including a representative of the US government, and particularly this office that published this report, including politicians, researchers, think tanks, media outlets, podcasters, and so forth. Now, we are not happy about the situation in South Africa. The situation in South Africa is indeed severe, and the findings by the State Department are indeed correct. But we are happy about the fact that the crisis is now increasingly being exposed, because the first step to tangibly addressing the crisis is to recognize it for what it is. And it does seem as if everyone is willing to come to the table except for the South African government, the ruling ANC, and its allies. This is a very important step, and even though a report like this by itself does not fix the crisis, it is a very important step towards working to a solution. Now, one can only hope that the South African government, that is already under significant pressure, would respond appropriately. We do know that the South African government is in desperate need for increased revenue, resources, and so forth, and that the tariff situation has placed significant pressure on the South African government. We have also recently heard the ANC saying that they want their members to stop chanting "kill the boer, kill the farmer," which gives an indication that the party might just have the capacity to bow under pressure when they have no other way out. Now, one can only hope that they would respond appropriately. There is much work to do, but this is indeed a big step forward. Lex Libertas has already issued a press statement on this matter, which is available on our website. There is a lot more to be said about this, which will be said in a follow-up press statement that will be issued.
Very big breaking news tonight. News that will come as a big blow to Donald Trump and his agenda. Tonight, a 3-judge panel in New York has effectively balked almost all of Trump's disastrous tariffs. Trump's tariffs against Mexico and Canada, his tariffs against the EU, against China, his tariffs against uninhabited islands with nothing but penguins and snow. They are all blocked by this federal court decision. It comes out of the United States Court of International Trade, which is a specialized court you may or may not have ever heard of, but it deals specifically with trade issues. A 3-judge panel consisting of 1 Reagan appointee, 1 Obama appointee, and crucially and importantly, 1 Trump appointee, ruled unanimously that Trump's trade war is essentially illegal, that he does not have the authority to enact these sweeping tariffs on his own. When Trump signed the executive order enacting these tariffs, he cited something called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, a law that gives the president the authority to use tariffs in times of national emergency. And in their ruling tonight, the judges write, quote, "The question is whether the International Emergency Economic Powers Act delegates these powers to the president in the form of authority to impose unlimited tariffs on goods from nearly every country in the world. The court does not read the law to confer such unbounded authority and sets aside the challenged tariffs imposed thereunder. The law does not grant tariff authority to the president simply when he finds or determines that an unusual and extraordinary threat exists." I sense a little snark there. I appreciate it. But man, when you put it that way, it all kind of makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not an expert in international trade law, but Trump's justifications for these tariffs have always been pretty thin, as Chris and I were just talking about. Trump claimed his tariffs on Canada were to stop fentanyl trafficking, even though less than 1% of the fentanyl we seize at the border comes from Canada. Less than 1%. Now, for the first time, we have a federal court saying that we all kind of sort of knew to be true already. The president's justification for this trade war is BS. And that is not all. The court tonight also ordered that all of the tariffs Trump has collected so far be vacated.
Canada was one of the countries to react with retaliatory tariffs of their own after the Trump administration this spring put tariffs on Canada. Now the report is that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is going to roll back those tariffs. And we've got a reaction now from a White House official here in Washington who says, "We welcome this move by Canada, which is long overdue. We look forward to continuing our discussions with Canada on the administration's trade and national security concerns." So clearly, talks ongoing between the United States and Canada. We know that Carney and Trump spoke by telephone yesterday. The question is when we might see some kind of broader trade agreement between the U.S. and Canada. Those talks have been on again, off again, not really very successful during the course of the summer. This move, though, might be the kind of thing where you can see the logjam starting to break and maybe heading toward some kind of arrangement after that phone call yesterday. Sarah.
It's intriguing to consider that Trump's tariffs might be more than just trade policy. They could be a strategic move to dismantle the fiat currency system, which many argue lacks real backing. Imagine a shift towards a gold-backed financial system, possibly even the quantum financial system. If the BRICS economies face significant challenges, it could create a perfect storm for a new financial paradigm to emerge. This connects to Trump's "trust the plan" mantra. Could it be part of a broader strategy to reshape global economics? The ultimate goal might be to establish a more stable, tangible currency system that restores trust in our financial institutions. It's a bold vision, but could it really be in the works?
We are waiting for people to get their due. Sometimes you have to see how horrible they really are before they get cut off at the knees. And that's what happened to McCarthy. So I take that example. It might not be a tribunal. It might not be all of our Navy ships off the coast of Japan and Australia and here in the UK and the Mediterranean where the tribunals are going on right now. But we will see signs like that. And it is those actualities that you can take for hope and belief we're getting there.
President Trump designated Gitmo for trials, Guam for trials, and Terra del Fuege for trials. So now we got Gitmo 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And the trials have been going on since September 30th. 30 news reporters, 30 news reporters last year got a lottery ticket, and they're down at Gitmo. And they are watching the trials. And when it gets reported on, everyone will know. Everyone will know. Okay, but until then, nobody knows. Well, except for me. I've got the court transcripts from Hillary's trial. The evidence we pulled out from underground in Rockford, Illinois, John Brennan was just tried. And so was Podesta. Huma Abedin is being tried right now. She turned state's evidence on Hillary. And I'm going to tell a young lady in here, without everybody knowing who that is, that I got a great opportunity a little bit ago to meet an admiral of the United States Navy who is the chief judge at Gitmo. And it's Admiral Crandall. So I found that very prophetic. Probably no relation whatsoever, but I found it very prophetic, and I cried for days. And he had the privilege of trying Hillary. Anyway, this last year and a half has been pretty interesting.
That's real. All of that is real. And bin Salman helped Trump do this, and he went to all of those CEO heads of all of those major media companies and social media companies. From there, then, as everyone knows, in middle and late November of 2017, Trump took his Asian tour. And again, it's the same thing. He went to Japan first and did the same thing. The Japanese capitulated without much fight at all. And the symbolic gesture was that at this sumo wrestling championship event that was taking place, they had Trump come on stage, and Trump was the one. This is supposed to be left for only, the highest figure of the land to present this trophy to the champion sumo wrestler. And Trump did it. Trump had this enormous trophy in the center of this ring. And it is the symbolization of Japanese submission to Trump, the NSA, and the Q plan, and capitulating control over to Trump. From there, now a lot of this has come out, and a lot of the QAnons did great work in figuring this out. But all of this stuff with North Korea started when Trump left Japan and flew directly to South Korea. And this first meeting was ostensibly to see if they could talk peace with North Korea. But no, what it was is to get all of these Asian governments to capitulate their control over to Trump via the documents that they had. Because remember, one of the biggest arms of procuring children for adrenochrome has always been Asia and Southeast Asia. And the Southeast Asian countries have been in cahoots with Hollywood and Washington, D.C. politicians. So a lot of these people who need children have weighed heavily and have leaned heavily upon these Southeast Asian governments to procure for them children. They demand it from them, and they've done it for years. So Trump showed up showing all of the documentation that they had, showing that they were all complicit and that these were all capital punishment criminal acts. So they all capitulated. And in secret, with that first meeting that Trump had to South Korea, in secret, Trump went to the North Korean border and he met with Kim and began the process of peace talks with the North Koreans. And then Trump, in subterfuge, in complete silence, completed those things on his own. And then, of course, as a huge surprise to the mainstream media, announced his treaty with Kim and the North Koreans. So all of this was done because all Trump had to do was to show him the power that he had. And that was now all of these countries. Remember, folks, again, all of these countries are not just stepping down from doing evil. They are also being forced into helping the Q plan. So all of these countries are now part of this process to help. Okay? So a lot of people now the next stop was China, and this was huge. And Mark, I know that you have been very, very pleasantly surprised to see what the Chinese Free Peoples have announced publicly through Steve Bannon.
That's right. Another story the mainstream media just forgot to tell us about.
Completely forgot to mention that China has kicked out the communist devil-worshipping Satanists, and
it's not that big of a deal. It's just a small story for the end of the news.
Yeah, and it's not like there's a lot of people in China or anything, right? I mean, maybe 1 million, I think. I don't know. I don't think there's that many. It's a huge deal, folks, and they ignored all of it. Now, and this is huge stuff. So first, everybody knows, but the press didn't make a big deal of it. But in the spring, not long after Trump had become president, the President Xi of China visited Trump at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Trump's big resort house in Florida. And he visited with Trump. Trump hasn't been president for that long. And people were just absolutely shocked. And they were also shocked because, the mainstream didn't do much of a job in reporting on this or anything. But he did. He came all the way from China and met Trump at Trump's leisure at Mar-a-Lago. That's a huge deal. So after Trump cleans all the house in Southeast Asia, he then goes to China. And where do he and Xi meet in China? In the Forbidden City. This is huge. It's called the Forbidden City for a reason, because it is a very private, spiritual, secretive place to Chinese heritage, Chinese culture, and that's where they met. And of course, that was at Trump's request, because that was this is there. So every one of these things, there's always a marker. There's always a marker showing how each of these nations has capitulated powerfully to Trump as their overlord. And this is meeting with Trump in the Forbidden City is this. This is probably the biggest one. You can't imagine, folks, how big of a deal this was. And of course, the mainstream media, just kind of silent about all of that. And at that meeting, what the apparently the Americans were very, very surprised to find out is how desperately all of these Chinese officials wanted these evil communists within their midst to be kicked out. They wanted this. They wanted to get away from all of this evil because remember, some of the worst possible things have taken place in China, and it has horrified people who have had a conscience. Not everyone is an evil person. People do have a conscience, and it affected a lot of the Chinese, and they were horrified by the things that they were being asked to do in China, and they wanted this. And so they met Trump with open arms, and they capitulated to Trump's authority willingly because they wanted this end to the cabal rule over them through the subterfuge of a communist state.
What's the deal with you being able to put out information like this? Because I know it's felt that the general public is not ready to handle this explosive information yet, and yet you're able to reveal all this stuff on the podcast today. Is this because at most we're looking at, maybe tens of thousands of people that will actually hear this? It's going to be very limited. It's very far from the mainstream general populace getting to hear about this. It's just a few people that have an interest in these subjects that are able to get a heads up ahead of the news breaking officially. Is that what the thinking is here?
Exactly. Charlie Freak is a bit of a nutter, isn't he? He's pretty extreme. He was the first one to say that no, everything is a lie, and I mean everything is a lie. That was Charlie Freak. And then going into the religious aspect of things, Jesus is this figure of this Swiss-looking white dude by the name of Jesus Christ is not real. Charlie Freak is a bit of a nut job. He's got some good stuff, granted, and he and Colleen are good people for what they do, working so hard with all of the animals, but he's a bit of a nut job. So there's a reason why we have, 4,000 subscribers and not 40,000 or 400,000 subscribers when all we teach is the holistic truth. So we're kind of insulated by telling the truth. And we don't sugarcoat it either, right?
This is like the reverse of the predictive programming that the cabal do. Because
Exactly.
they put out their little clues in films and stuff, and only a few are ever going to decipher those clues and understand what they're pointing towards. And this is like the reversal of that. So it's truth for just the few, the very minimal few that are able to understand this information and take it on.
And it kind of gives Colleen and I a lot of chuckles as well. And as you know, we've never been concerned about our numbers as our numbers were never going to be. We're watched very, very closely on YouTube. So yeah, it's we're very safe to have this knowledge to come because we're good people. We're good people. We're good folks and we care so much, but we're a couple of nutters. And the thing is, remember what I said at the beginning of the show, every day moving forward, Mark Devlin and Collywog and Charlie Freak become more and more valuable and more important because we surrounded ourselves by the truth and we've been sharing the truth. So no matter what happens moving forward, our services are going to vastly and desperately be needed. And some of these others, not so much. So you find yourself in a situation where there are a lot of people who are rooting for the bad guys here. And that's all I'm going to say. You guys do your own research, come to your own conclusions. It'll all come out in the end, I promise you. But there's a lot going on here, my friends, and it's pretty ugly. That's all I'm going to say about that. So after China, Trump went to Vietnam, and you got it. And at this very public ceremony, Trump was placed slightly ahead and to the right of the Vietnam president, and showed himself to be in charge. And Vietnamese. So what the Vietnamese promised was to stop their participation in procuring children for
the human trafficking.
Yep. So he didn't leave until they capitulated quickly. Most of these did not put up a fight, folks. Israel put up the biggest fight. Now, this is a big one for me. And boy, you talk about going into the lion's den. The big one after Vietnam and the end of the Asian tour for Trump is in January, I believe it was, very early in 2018. Trump attended a very, very famous meeting because of everyone who was purported to be there at Davos, Switzerland. Do you guys remember this? This is January of 2018. This was quite a big deal. Soros was there as well. He was present at this as well. And at this meeting, you're talking about the biggest international corporations in the world. This is it. These are the key players, and these are the biggest, most evil corporations that are at this meeting at Davos, Switzerland. It was called by Trump. That's not what they said publicly, of course, but it was called by Trump. Trump came in late again. He sat at the very middle of the table, and basically everyone was kind of wrapped around Trump because he was the boss of this meeting. And Trump laid out documents and folders. He started with envelopes, very similar to what occurred at the George Bush funeral when he first arrived. And you had a lot of very, very worried people for the meeting the next day because of what was said in these envelopes the day before. And then the next day at this meeting, he provided a whole bunch more information about each one of these evil fucks. And the meeting very, very quickly. Now, this is kind of a scary place. It would be for me anyways, to go to Davos, Switzerland, and all of the caves and tunnels underneath those mountains. And they could have abducted him and said that this was some kind of kidnapping, and they don't know where he is, but they're going to use all of their resources to try to. This is scary, big stuff. That you talk about
I'm sure
cojones.
he didn't go here alone.
No, I'm sure he didn't either. But still, you talk about cojones. Yeah. I think this was Mark. I think this was Trump at his most vulnerable. Was this January 2018 meeting in the Lion's Den at Davos, Switzerland, and Soros was there
for that trip.
Yes, right. Yeah, and scared little rodents, they capitulated quite quickly. I think Trump played it really well with those envelopes the first night, and then made them sweat it overnight, and then the folders the next day, and they capitulated, and Trump did not leave without them. And remember again, folks, this is not just saying to Nestle that you're not going to poison the water anymore.
Or steal the water anymore.
Yeah, well, yeah. But you're also working for us, and what we ask you to do, you do. And if you don't do, we go public one by one. We don't make this look like a big conspiracy and we're nuts. You're a lone nut. You're a kook. You're a sick child abuser, and we're going to pick on you individually. That's what Trump said to each of them. We're not going to make this a conspiracy that'll help you. We're going to single you out and eat you alive. So they all capitulated at this meeting, and this is a huge one because these are the biggest companies. HSBC was there. This is evil. This is the faces of evil were at this meeting, and George Soros was at this meeting. Mm-hmm.
There has been a notable absence of ISIS terror attacks in recent years. I know there was a huge spate of them. I'm trying to remember the years. Maybe it was around 2016, 2017. But then I don't think we've heard from ISIS for a good couple of years or more. I wonder if that's a coincidence.
John McCain. Now let's do the John McCain math here. When was John McCain alive? When was John McCain spending a lot of time in the Middle East? And then when did John McCain get taken out and have a dishonorable discharge and a dishonorable funeral where the flag on his coffin was askewed, pointing out that he was dishonorably discharged from the military before he was shot in the back of the head. So yeah, let's do the John McCain mathematics here, okay? And then you add that up, and I think you can come to an answer. You can figure out when ISIS just seemed to go away. John McCain had to nurse those idiots into doing the things that they did. ISIS was his charge, and that's why you have so many shots of McCain over in the Middle East, hanging out with all four of the main ISIS evil heads. You know, we're never going to find all of them. And no, he just happened to be having lunch with all four of them. Yeah, they're just his little buddies. So
I think they've all got coronavirus now, which is why we don't hear from them.
That's exactly right. So, these people, sickening. So then Trump went to India, and the Modi, who was the Indian leader, very publicly. And by the way, this is really a good one, because I'm not sure necessarily why it worked this way. Maybe it was Trump's idea, I don't know. But from Modi, the Indian leader, onwards, you see all of these international presidents and prime ministers all coming to these public meetings now with their arms wrapped about and their hands all wrapped about, like they're symbolizing that their hands are in cuffs.
That their hands are tied.
Their hands are literally tied. So the first one to do this was Modi. And at this, and it was such a weird thing. People were kind of looking at him and going, "This is kind of odd. Like, why does he keep doing this?" And he was trying to draw attention to the fact that he was clasping his wrists because he had cuffs on them. So don't blame me. Don't get angry at me. I'm sorry, my hands are tied, is what he was saying. So he took India and made India work for him. The Central Americas, starting with Mexico, AMLO, the corrupt, oh no, he's a good guy. No, he's a kindly old man. And AMLO, he cares about the Mexican people. He's going to change. He's evil. But anyways, he was quite resistant, and Trump actually made comments to that about how inhospitable Mexico was to him, and people were just like thinking, well, yeah, because you were all doing all that wall stuff and stuff. No. It was about,
or you're racist and you don't like Mexicans.
That's right. No. It was
Trump's
about
not racist.
AMLO didn't want to give up eating children and give up his power to Trump. Kind of liked his little gig, but they did. He went to, from Mexico City, he went to all of the Central American countries, and they all signed over. And then in all of these meetings, all of these various leaders, AMLO included, all were doing these clapping their hands together and their wrists together like they were being bound and forced into doing this. And I won't even get into it, but there's kind of a reason with these Spanish types. But anyways, we move forward. We get to Brazil, and the new Brazilian president, I guess he's a president in Brazil. He thinks he's got the best job in the world because he's far away from all the bright lights of the mainstream news, and he can just rape and go to the bank in Brazil. No, Trump pays him a visit and tells him he's working for Trump or else. And so they have this very public meeting where, once again, Bolsonaro, he clamped his hands together and his wrists together, showing that he was forced into doing this, and he submitted over to Trump as well. And then after Trump leaves, guess what? One of the first acts that Bolsonaro did as the president, this is very key everywhere, by the way, folks, is all of these then key arrests after Trump left these countries of key pedophilia cover companies and individuals. And so Oprah's best friend in the world, that beautiful spiritual man, John of God, who is running one of the largest child trafficking and adrenochrome production facilities in the world, just an absolute monster, Oprah's best pal. He was arrested shortly after Trump left by Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil. And they took dear, sweet man of God, literal Christian, Jesus, who maybe looked more Latin than Swiss. But anyways, and he was arrested, and the rest is history there. So then he went to Argentina, and Argentina has long been kind of a safe haven because it's as far as people can get away. Obama, the Obamas, Mike and his little bitch Barack, they used to go there quite a bit because they were planning their safe escape, their retreat. If certain things should come out, they spent a lot of time in Argentina as well, as did a lot of people. It was kind of like their hideaway place. Trump went there, and this Argentinian president, who is such a corrupt person, is just brutal. Trump was so disrespectful to this guy.
Well, they had the G7 in Argentina, right?
Yeah, that's right. They had I think, yeah, that's right. So therefore that meant they had to have the global banksters there as well and stuff. So there's actually quite a lot of people that were there as well. And but Trump's behavior to this Argentine president was just brutal. Just treating him like the scum of the earth that he is. And of course he capitulated. And
the mainstream press always presents this as Trump just not observing protocol, and he's just this oaf, and he's uncouth and all this.
Yeah.
Just a buffoon.
That's right. Well, the big thing with this Argentinian president is that Trump just up and walked off the stage after, I guess Trump had spent, I guess he felt long enough. I was 5 or 10 minutes for a couple of questions and some photo op, and he just up and left and didn't say a word to anyone, including that Argentine president. And again, it's a power move, and basically just saying, you're scum of the earth. We know who you are. You're scum of the earth. Just obey what we tell you or else. And that's what he did. And then at the G7 summit in Canada, he very fortunately, of course, had horrific pedophile and adrenochromer Justin Trudeau, of course, was hosting the meeting. He was there, but Angela Merkel was there as well, and she was one of the big ones that he wanted to be there as well, because she didn't play a major role back in Brussels. So at this meeting, he got everyone there, but in particular, it was the capitulation of Justin Trudeau of Canada, Angela Merkel of Germany. And both of them did the same thing. In fact, Justin Trudeau spent most of the G7 with his hands clasped together like he was in handcuffs. So, and Trump did a lot of very, very suggestive gestures towards Justin Trudeau as well, kind of pointing out some stuff. One of the ones that Trump is kind of cute, that treated the absolute worst with the most disrespect, he just treated him like a little child, was Macron, the French president, and of course he is just so known for being just an absolute Rothschild stooge and a horrible adrenochromer. And the stuff that Trump did with this clown in public, in front of the press and the media, to make him look bad was actually incredible. So he got Macron to capitulate as well. Now, Theresa May in your country resigned to allow Bojo to take over as a Trump supporter. And she exited. And do you remember Theresa May? Mark? She was crying and crying and crying, and she couldn't control herself. Do you remember any of that?
I remember.
Okay, well, the real reason that she was actually crying is not just all the stuff that they had on her and that he showed, but that Trump actually showed the intel from the NSA that the Phoenicians were planning on taking her out. She was actually set for an assassination, and Trump apparently showed her all the intel, all the detailing on where and when she was going to be hit and how. And I guess it just...
So he basically saved her life.
He did save her life.
What would have been the objective of taking her out then?
To get Boris Johnson in, somebody who was going to be strong. And you think about that, Boris Johnson.
Or did they have a plan to put somebody else in?
Yeah, for many, that's right. They must have had somebody else that they wanted in. And so Boris Johnson is a strong character. Now, he does appear to be strongly evil. But again, if he's playing this role, then he is a very strong character.
He must be a damn good actor because he's got me fooled.
I think we should have some awards after all this.
It took me a while to come around to the idea of Trump, but yeah, I can see that, but I don't see it with Boris.
Yeah, and I would agree. I would agree too. It was he sure had me fooled as well. Yeah, I really thought that he was just another one of these. But I guess the real trigger was that speech at the UN. Half the speech was sort of good old Boris and, vaccinations. But the first half of that speech at the UN that he did, now that was beginning of April, end of March, that speech that he did at the UN in New York. When at the UN, there was almost no one in attendance because they had all fled, because they're all...
Looked like he was by himself.
They're all child traffickers. They had all fled into hiding. But that first half of that speech is Boris Johnson kind of telling you that there's a control mechanism in place and that an evil cabal is ruling things. But you know what? Get your shots. He finished his speech with, that the COVID is real and that these vaccinations are very good for you and important. So
yeah, well, that's why people have a hard time accepting that he's on the side of the people with all the stuff that he's put out there.
Yes, and I don't think anyone should after hearing this, I don't think anyone should turn and make Boris Johnson a good friend of theirs or anything like that. No, remove this fake, illegal, evil government from power. Don't wait for the November 2020 election to do it. You make your own change. This is your country. And I think Boris Johnson should be taken down. He's just has been a horrific prime minister, surrounded by horrific people. But I just wanted to give you that stuff on Theresa May and her just crying like a baby as she stepped down and stepped away from it all. They didn't even like her in the end. They didn't like her. Nobody likes me, says Theresa.
We didn't like her either.
Yep, that's right. And then, of course, very famously, his little trip to Buckingham Palace and the royals. And there's a lot of conjecture if that was even the real Queen who was there that day, because she most famously has, I think, the most body doubles in place. But his behavior, Trump's behavior that day was just incredible. He just walked all over the place wherever he went. And that Camilla Parker, she really hated it. There are lots of photos of her just incensed by Trump's apparent lack of protocol, right? And Trump was just walking all over the place. And one of the great shots that exist is that Trump walked right up to Prince Charles, which I think is a good indicator that wasn't Charles who was there, because that's, I think, what Trump is pointing out. Trump stepped ahead of Prince Charles and started to walk away at a pace that Charles couldn't keep up. And he walked right over to Charles' private guard and just began shooting the breeze with them and having a good conversation. You can imagine the kind of questions or the kind of statements he was making to these guys that had to observe what the royals were up to, hey? Right. So, yeah, and then the coup de grace shot was that Trump managed to get himself and have a photo op in Winston Churchill's very famous leather-bound chair. And Trump has the shot where he kind of famously replicates a famous image of Winston Churchill, just sort of exerting.
He's looking like a boss.
Yep, looking like the boss. Exactly, looking like he did on The Apprentice as the boss, and firing people left, right, and center. You're fired. And I think that's the significance of that shot. And again, when we do the video package for this, which eventually, of course, if you want to put that version on your site too, you'll be able to do that as well. That'll be awesome. So, and then from there, he went to Russia, and boy, was this ever a big one. Hey, if everyone remembers that, actually, no, he met Putin in Norway. That's right. They actually did it in Norway. And so at this meeting between the two of them, they're both at the podium, and Putin has a soccer ball.
Which has connotations, though, that isn't so funny. I mean, we talked about this earlier.
Exactly.
Mark, about the adrenochrome.
It's horrific, I know, but I mean, it's just you couldn't put it more in plain sight. So at this very public, this is in front of all the press, snapping their pictures, taking their video, and there is Vladimir Putin, and he hands over to Donald Trump a soccer ball, and he famously says, "The ball is in your court now, Mr. President." So does everyone get that? Putin hands Trump at this public conference a soccer ball and says, "The ball is now in your court." So what Putin is saying, we're on your team. Please don't have us killed. We're on your team. And so the ball is in your court, but we just want you to know we work for you now. And of course, I'm
sure that'll all come out, whether all of these people and who in all of the political realm, who has been working because they had to and who's been working because they wanted to. That's
right. So yeah.
Well, it's not a bad first 3.5 years of work, really, is it? It's a pretty good track record.
Just incredible. And that, the soccer ball from Putin, I think for all of you who have been rolling your eyes at this adrenochrome stuff, shame on you. Because
but we understand why you'd want to not believe it.
I guess it's just that it is the children. You need to take this seriously. Yep. You need to take this. If you do a modicum of research, like Mark said, it just, even away from all of the Trump stuff, the adrenochrome stuff just sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, that's just the source of Hollywood movie after Hollywood movie. So
now, what is going to be the mechanism for eventually communicating all of this to the general public, to the masses? It's presumably going to involve some kind of emergency takeover of the broadcast networks in all these countries. That's the only way it's going to get out to everyone.
That's exactly right, Mark. That's exactly right. And what's going to happen is that the only thing that will be available via multiple sources of signals, but it'll be the one channel. It'll be the one thing, and that will be from Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, and that's going to be the military tribunals where all of these people who are left are going to be accused. And that's the big thing. I think how this all plays out, because the evidence is there's no real defense. They've all tried to make their defenses now by capitulating. So, like, again, Kevin Spacey, Jeffrey Epstein, the Bush family, when everyone was at the funeral service for Pappy, good old Timberwolf, when they were all served those letters, they all just panicked, and in fact, they requested meetings with Trump after that. And everyone remembers that, right? When did Trump arrive at good old Timberwolf's funeral? Did he arrive early or did he arrive late? He arrived late, did Trump, and he interrupted the service, and he was in the front row, and he interrupted all of these past sitting presidents. He interrupted the entire service. He made a mockery of this service to the monster known as George Herbert Walker Bush, Timberwolf, Pappy.
And they all looked rather ashen-faced after they got their envelopes, didn't they?
That's right. And let me throw you the punchline. They made overtures to Trump. So just to let you know, and then Trump had them, and he's had various famous people deliver pizzas to various groups in public. And do you folks see any significance in doing this? Why would Trump have Kevin Spacey deliver pizzas in public? Why would they have? Why would Donald Trump have George W. Bush serve pizza to his Secret Service detail and make sure that this was a photo opportunity and have photos taken of it?
So submission.
It's submission, but it's also
Symbolism will be their downfall.
Yeah,
symbolism will be their downfall. The pizza, and also what the Secret Service guys
And
had
it's
to
probably
witness,
all
Mark.
gonna be part of the
It's what
documentary.
they had to witness as security for these evil fucks. So it's these poor people that you see. Remember how I said to you folks at the beginning of this, how there are millions of victims of World War III? It's just different. And these Secret Service agents, all of those guards, Trump, he famously outpaces Prince Philip, goes over to Prince Philip's detail. What do you think he was saying to them? I love you guys. I love what you stand for. I can't imagine what you guys have had to witness and what to just know that help is coming. Just know that help is coming. I'll bet you that's exactly what Trump was saying to Charles's royal guard. So there are a ton of victims. There are millions and millions, and of course, the number one victims are the kids. And when the numbers come forward, you're going to be sick to your stomach. So this World War III this is the worst war ever. It just doesn't seem that way. It just doesn't seem that way, but it is, folks. Nancy Pelosi, he took Nancy Pelosi down very famously. Governor Newsom of California, former Governor Jerry Brown, he took them down very, very publicly. In fact, it's after those Paradise fires in California, there was a video that was shot of Trump boots on the ground checking out the source of the fires and stuff. And for 3 straight minutes, both Newsom and Jerry Brown, governor and former governor, had their hands wrapped together behind them for the whole 3 minutes. The whole 3 minutes they were told to have their hands look like they were handcuffed and behind their backs for the whole 3 minutes as they're walking in and amongst all of the wreckage and flotsam and jetsam of the insanity of those Paradise fires, and they're walking about with their hands cuffed behind them, without cuffs on, for 3 minutes. And then the picture that I posted on our page the other day, I think going back to the end of March or the beginning of April, Trump forced New York Governor Cuomo to show up to his press conference with his nipple piercings in, and they were showing underneath his white shirt. And I posted the picture. You can see them plain as day, and not a single person in the press noticed it, or if they did, not a single person in the mainstream media said anything. And in one shot, Cuomo was forced to pull back his jacket and unveil, for some bizarre reason, the whole front of his chest, and still nobody got it, or nobody asked him a question about, hey, Governor, why are you wearing nipple piercings? And they appear to be huge nipple piercings. And just so you know, folks,
It would be the bar.
It's the bar. And so just so you know, folks, the backstory to this is that the footage that Trump had on Cuomo at a spirit cooking events, and Abramovich was there was child murder, torture going on. And at this party, all duded up in different paint and ceremonial costume and stuff, was Governor Cuomo with these big nipple rings. And so you can see how Trump can be pretty tough here, folks. He said, yeah, and what I'd like to see you is show up at your next press conference with, you're pretty proud of those nipple rings when you're killing kids. How about you wear those nipple rings to your next presser? And he did what he was told.
Wow.
He did what he was told, and you can see it.
I feel like I need to take a shower after this podcast.
Great. Oh.
Now, if the cabal knows its days are numbered, there's every chance they might try to roll out every weapon that they have in their arsenal at this stage, you would think. So they pulled the George Floyd Black Lives Matter stunt out of their toolkit. Presumably we can expect more along these lines, or would you say that they've been so neutered by now and they've been rendered so impotent because so many of the ringmasters have been put out of action that they don't really have that many tricks left up their sleeve? All they've got is the mainstream media and all the propaganda and fear that they can spread through that.
Yes.
I guess my question is, do you expect more false flag stunts to be forthcoming between now and November? Or do you not think they've got the
but not
capacity
to the
pull
same
them off
extent,
anymore?
because Soros has been removed. Now, I'm not saying that I know that Soros has been murdered or not, because the Soros trial publicly would be exactly what they want. Just like Oprah. People are calling for, well, if they kill Tom Hanks, please kill Oprah. No, they don't want to do these things. They want these people to have their first of two judgment days. There's going to be the big judgment day, the only one that really matters. But there is also going to be a judgment day here on Earth where we all get to tune in if we want. And they want this for Soros. So it's my belief that Soros has been removed, but I think he's still alive. They want these key people for these trials. They really do. The ones that they have killed, they have had to do so. And remember, I'm going to just make this very clear. It's when one child's life is at risk, they've made the decision to execute. So the ones that have been executed are the ones that have posed the greatest threats to children. And that's why Tom Hanks has been taken out. And we're told Rita Wilson as well. I have no idea whether that's true or not, but she might as well be. Do you see those pictures of Rita Wilson in her last days, or the last photos that exist of her? Yike. Missing your adrenochrome much? Yike.
You posted a picture that Tom Hanks had taken in Australia of some Vegemite spread on some toast. And there appears to be an image carved into the Vegemite on the toast. Very bizarre story, but again, more symbolism.
It is, and also most people didn't get the symbolism of the glass of water tilted up on the side of the plate, but the water was level. So people are going, see, it's a mistake, it's an error, it's all Photoshop, this isn't real and stuff. No, he's on this is Australia, and he's been taken into custody by the U.S. Marines. And the Marines are the ones that have been going ship to shore all around the world. The Marines have been doing all of the international arrests. And so he was on, I guarantee it, he was on a U.S. Naval ship that was populated by the Marines. And he knew that he was going to be, for me, I take all of that he was going to be executed that day, that was his last, that's his last message and stuff, other than, of course, hosting Saturday Night Live from hell, I guess, but... It
was supposed to be a hanged man, right? The image.
That's right. I took another image and then highlighted so that people could see it a little bit better. Kind of outlined it and highlighted the hanged man image. Also, by the way, folks, you can see it with the toast. Not many people have got that itself. But again, to hang a person, you have to have a column that is very sturdy. But then the person that's hanging has to be away from that post, or they can wrap their legs around it to try to suspend themselves. So they go out and to the right, correct? That's what the hangman's pole looks like. Well, that's how, if you look at his breakfast toast, just while you were listening, go back and just check it, and then look at Tom Hanks' toast, and the second piece of toast is up and to the right, and that is the hangman's post with the noose, and he took a bite out of the noose. And a lot of people have not got in that little post is what I put up at the top there, and that little saying that's from Tom Hanks, and that's what Tom Hanks said as his sort of farewell words to this world, which is that I smoke up good shit every single day, and the stuff that I smoke is so strong that'll make your little dick fall off. Who's he talking about? What's he talking about? He's talking about little boys, little kids. And then he says, and I make no apologies. He said, I'm going to go out on fire as I lived my life on fire. I lived it my way. That's Tom Hanks being a devil to the absolute end. So if you're wondering why he was taking out, because they could not guarantee the safety of children with that man alive. So how sick and evil is Tom Hanks? Wow. Just telling you folks, and it's all going to come out. It's all going to come out, the stuff and what he was really doing and what he was really behind. Tom Hanks was behind a massive, massive organization.
And how does that psychologically affect you? Like, it affects me because I liked Tom Hanks as an actor, and I used to think that he was, a fairly decent person. And just knowing that I even liked someone like that, and the thought of the things that he's done, it just makes me feel, like you said, you want to take a shower, you feel so dirty. That's how I feel.
A very important question that I've got, which people have asked me to put to you, actually, is the takedown of the deep state criminals and all these paedophiles and stuff is something that would be welcomed by anyone in their right mind. Everyone would want that. But what about what lies beyond all this? And what would the world look like once this system has been dismantled under Donald Trump? So when he enters his second term, how can we be sure it wouldn't just be another expression of a kind of New World Order, one world government just under Trump in his vision? And also, what would happen at the end of Trump's second term? So presumably he's going to get re-elected in November. That will take him through to, 2024 then, by which point he'll be 78 years of age. Imagine that. What happens then? Any insights into that?
For sure. But again, people are just going to believe anyone who's asking that question in relation to all that the man has done, clearly. It's mind-blowing to me. But anyways, Trump is going to walk away from all of this. He's not going to continue on with this much longer. This has taken an incredible toll on him. He's done it at his age because Trump is a very remarkable individual. He really is, and he has a strong will of life. There's a lot of things about Donald Trump that people don't know, and about his maturity and wisdom, and about the spiritual side of Donald Trump as well. And I also really want to point out to everyone here's the thing. If you really understood, if you understood your numerology and symbology, you'd absolutely know that. So the biggest reason how we know and are absolutely sure about so many things is because of all of the numerology and symbology that has always been used by the Q team, by Q John F. Kennedy Jr., by Donald J. Trump. The symbology there's never been a mistake. There's never been a situation where they've used the wrong symbology. It's always beautiful.
Trump is trying to, and the Q movement are trying to really create leaders. We are to all become leaders. And that's why they will give it back to the people. But before that, we need to find out who we really are and what's really been going on. And I would suggest that that's what the Great Awakening is, and that's what all this is about, and that's why we're doing what we do, and that's why you do what you do, Mark. We're not trying to create followers. This isn't about creating money for ourselves. I mean, those are all bonuses that we can get, resources out of it, but it's about creating a mindset for people to go and discover their own truths. There's a truth out there that we need to discover. It's been hidden from us. And when we realize all of that, we will be the people that we need to be. And we can then run our own communities, our own world. We don't need those politicians. We don't need those authorities. We'll not let ourselves get into this predicament again where we give our power away. And so what do we have to prove that Trump is going to do this? Well, I think we've laid out a lot of who Trump is and what he's about. And we have to have faith at some point, and we have to grow up, and we have to become responsible for our own lives, and we have to become responsible for our families and our own actions. And so when that happens, we will be the regenerated person that can do all of those wonderful things and share in this incredible world that they're saying, we've taken the evil, now what are you going to do?
And if this does turn out to be just another social engineering psyop, it will be just about the cruelest psyop ever played on the public psyche, one of false hope.
It would be, but I know it's not.
Yeah. And and again, that's not just a hope statement. If you know your symbology, if you know your numerology, all of this is real, and they're just constantly coding. That's the beautiful thing. If you take all of this seriously, like the QAnons do. This is amazing stuff because they know their symbol. And this is all godly, ancient, spiritual, godly symbology and numerology. It's beautiful, and that's what they use all the time. Trump is constantly making references out of the Bible to the highest, beautifulest things. And when Trump talks about religion or his spiritual nature, or when John F. Kennedy Jr. does, they're always God. It's God, 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 God. When you listen to a literalist Christian, it's Jesus is God. Jesus is my Lord. Jesus Christ is my Savior, and don't tell me anything else or I'll,
Right. So the ultimate power is God, and why would we not go straight to God? And that's part of the ruse of religion is they've become the intermediaries between you and God.
By
and they
creating, that's right, by taking the chrism oil and personifying it into a fleshy, three-dimensional, almost Swiss-looking, handsome gentleman that just, was wandering around the Holy Land with his friends 2,000 years ago. It's a horrible, it's a horrible subterfuge. It is, and again,
so we need to find our power.
Yeah, it's all going to come out. It's all going to come out.
So as we record this, we're a few days away, a couple of weeks away from the 4th of July. Big things on the cards?
Yes. Well, that's always been the plan, and they have removed, and now that this is the other thing that gives me hope that they'll continue. What we're talking about, of course, is the resurrection of George from the pages of George magazine, who will make a timely reappearance with a full moon over Mount Rushmore.
Platform 2020.
Platform 2020 with a full moon over Mount Rushmore. And, like Mark knows, the full moon, the fullest of the moon is July 5th, but July 4th is a very powerful full moon over Mount Rushmore. And Donald Trump has announced that he's going to be there on July 4th at Mount Rushmore. Why? I don't know. Why would he be there? That's weird. And it just happens to be on a magazine cover from February of 1997 for a magazine owned by his best friend in the world, which was John F. Kennedy Jr. And look, folks, at the end of the day, I can speak to this because I just don't know why, but from a very young age, I have been powerfully connected to, and it's not fair to say the Kennedys. I've been very powerfully connected to John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy, RFK, JFK and RFK. I've been powerfully connected, so much so that when I was 5 years of age, I left preschool or kindergarten, and I walked home all on my own. I apparently had never done that before. And when my mom went to pick me up from school, I wasn't there. Nobody knew where I was. Mom went back home on a chance, and she found me downstairs in the basement. I was watching the funeral train that took RFK's coffin draped in the American flag on a train back across the United States. And I just don't know why, but I have been drawn to this, and I have researched it and cared about it desperately my whole life. And when JFK Jr. was killed in '99, it was a pretty heavy blow to me personally. It just felt like one of the biggest aspects or parts of hope in my life was now gone, and I was actually very, very angry for a while because of the carelessness, because he had to have known.
So it's like full circle. This is like completion. This is like the number 12.
It is for me. And so when you hear these stories from behind the scenes that Donald Trump is doing this to aid in the completion of his favorite president, which was John F. Kennedy, and to help the dream of the president's son, who went to such an extent that he faked his death and went underground for 21 years to put together the master plan that would take down this world. And what did John Kennedy say in the very pages of his own magazine, very publicly? He said that I will find the killers, if you remember, folks. He said plural, killers of my father, and he said I will evoke justice upon them.
Even if I have to.
Even if I have to
take down the government.
Yeah, take down the government to do so. And then he disappeared, or he was murdered. You believe what you want to believe. I know what I know. And there's a beautifulness to this. And the people that don't get this, Mark, have anger in their lives. The people that get this have love in their hearts. And that's about as blunt as I can be, or will choose to be right now on this situation. Those that are not getting this and are worried that suddenly this angelic creation and Donald Trump, who's doing this because he needs this, like he needs a hole in the head, is somehow evil and is now going to just turn this into a dictatorship and stuff. These people lack love. They lack balance in their minds, and that's why we teach meditation. That's why we teach qigong. That's why we teach tai chi. It's why we teach breathing, diet. All of these things are going to be so important as we move forward in the year 2021. Healing is what is going to come next. And you asked earlier, so what's this all going to look like and how is this all going to play out? I think society is going to be very slow to get back to work. Very slow. I think there's going to be sort of a kind of a feeling like they're getting back to work. Trump's talking positively, getting everybody back to work. But pretty soon it's going to then be the election. And then after that election, after the winter solstice, when the sun is the lowest within us that it can possibly be, then I think there's going to be a time for soul reflection. And that's when these tribunals are going to start. And that's when all of this is going to come out in 2021. And it's then we're going to need Mark Devlin. It's then we're going to need Collywog big time to help all of us to process just how dark and evil everything has been. But all I can tell you is that I don't guess at these things. I know these things, and I know that Donald Trump is aiding John F. Kennedy Jr. avenge his father's plan, and it was his father and his uncle's plan.
And freeing the world.
Those two kids, giving back liberty to those that have the strength to grasp it.
nobody will be safe if not everybody is vaccinated.
Are you vaccinated, if I may ask?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very pro-vaccination. I believe the science is unequivocal.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants.
Basically implanted in your skull. So, but it would be flush with your skull. So you basically take out a chunk of skull, put the Neuralink device in there. You put the electrode, you'd insert the electrode threads very carefully into the brain.
It doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you if you take a genetic editing. It's a fusion of the physical, the digital, and the biological world.
A merger with biological intelligence and machine intelligence.
An effort for man to merge with machine in a healthy way.
Yes.
To beat machines, you basically have to merge with machines.
Most likely, yes.
As work is changing, is a universal basic income really a solution to this problem?
And I think some kind of a universal basic income is going to be necessary.
Decarbonization of the economy.
I mean, my top recommendation, honestly, would be just to have a carbon tax.
It's a transition to a new time, which will change everything. It will change how we communicate, how we work, how we live. In the agricultural age, the economy was mainly based on agricultural products. In the industrial age, industrial products and services, more and more sophisticated. But now in this new age, the base will be knowledge, data, and intelligent insights. What does it mean for governments? Governments have to be enablers of this change at lightning speed. They have to provide the necessary infrastructure.
They had a plan, a dark vision for humanity, orchestrated by the deep state and the so-called Khazarian mafia. Enslavement was their goal, stripping away our freedoms and controlling every aspect of our lives. But here's the truth. Despite their schemes, there's a higher power still in control. We are not pawns in their game. Every day, people are waking up, questioning the narrative, and fighting back. This is a battle for our future, and it's one we can win together. The light of truth is stronger than their shadows. We must stay vigilant and united.
For the last few years, images of certain celebrities have surfaced, which spark a lot of speculation. About what? About their appearance. There are drastic changes in their appearance that looks otherworldly sometimes. Many of them allegedly are using something called Ozempic. They start to look unnervingly thin. They have sunken eyes, elongated features, and again, they don't look like they are from this world. And what's up with the elongated hands, right? Now, this is what I thought as soon as I saw them. Is it just me, or do these people look like gray hybrids? The visual similarity immediately brought my mind to the mysterious alleged video interview with an extraterrestrial from Area 51. And I'm going to show you at the end. In that video, the supposed alien reveals something chilling, but also it makes so much sense. Basically, this being told the interviewer that it wasn't an alien at all, at least not in the traditional sense, but a human from a distant future. According to the being, humanity had reached this point where natural reproduction was no longer possible. Our species had become completely sterile. No surprise. So in desperation, these future humans that had also mastered time travel decided to return to our era, seeking genetic materials because they needed to save their species from extinction. And this was the claim to why the reason behind all of the alien abduction phenomena. People were taken, samples were extracted, and then they were returned home. Now, the majority of times, people don't remember. Their memory was swiped. Hence, Men in Black, the little pen. Yeah. And I think that the abduction stories we do hear about are just the people that were like divergent. Like the memory swiping didn't work on them, and so they remembered. And does anybody else remember the cattle mutilations? This is also tied to the same story. So future humanity required also bovine DNA as well. Maybe they didn't have anything to eat. No idea. But let's get into the story more because it's super cool. Or perhaps cows no longer existed on their timeline. Or because their biology held some essential key to correcting human sterility. So to enable these operations, the entity claimed agreements were made with President Eisenhower and the NESARA. They made a bargain. Basically, they had permission to abduct a limited number of humans in exchange for certain technological advances. In fact, cell phones, computers, everything else. When did it happen? After Roswell. This alleged deal became one of the darkest secrets in modern history. And they hid it under the veil of government secrecy. So now, decades later, the puzzle pieces begin to connect. When I see celebrities like Miley Cyrus or others that are taking these modern medicine and emerging with bodies and faces that are like reminiscent of the gray, my head starts, the bolts in my head, they just start spinning, right? Cannot help but think of that interview. What if the changes in our bodies today with medicine, pharmaceuticals, food, pesticides, things that are floating around in the air, pollution, all of this creates like this genetic manipulation. Just think of the pharmaceutical experiments, the nanometals and the iron particles that are being quietly introduced into our systems. They're all over the place. I believe we are laying out the foundation for that sterile, fragile future. And if that's the case, then maybe the so-called grays are not aliens at all. Maybe they're simply us after centuries of tampering, medicine, and modification. And they came back to salvage what we lost. So who here agrees with me? I'm seeing the story play out. As usual, let me know in the comments what you think, because I think that our collective minds can really resonate with the truth.
No way. This right here is a Miley that I remember that I always knew. What on earth is going on? Like, I'm not talking bad about you, Miley, but is this even you, Miley? Like, is this the same person? Okay, so let's look at other celebrities, man. He does not look anything like, what is going on with Zac Efron? What's going on with him? Don't even get me started on Kris Jenner, y'all. I mean, what is going on, man? Y'all like my salty hat? Look, dude, I don't even know. I don't even know. I mean, then you got Miss Kylie, dude. I mean, I just feel like the Kardashians and the Jenners, they're not the best influence, honestly, man. And you got all these little kids looking up to y'all. Well, they're all wanting to get, lip plump filler and all that. That's literal, in my opinion now. That's poison going into it. It's not good for you. It's just not, man. Y'all need to focus more on like natural beauty. The beautiful thing is being a good person. I mean, stuff like that. Treating people good, not just looking like a fake Barbie doll. I don't know, man. I think everybody's kind of over it.
Won't be able to stomach it. I have to show you. Now look, everybody knows Beyonce. She's done things in music that no one ever has, where she has constant top 100 Billboard hits. Not to mention that she's been in movies. She's a business owner and honestly has the relationship that everybody wants. Then everything took a turn, because in 2009, everybody forgot that she got into an accident, but not just any accident, a completely fatal one. Then after this happened, they couldn't just get rid of their star player. They had to find a replacement. But here's where it gets crazy, because they had a look-alike contest for Beyonce. And apparently what people are saying is that they selected somebody that looks just like her. I mean, just take a look at this.
We haven't seen the real Beyonce since the days of Destiny's Child. As the outlandish story goes, record executives knew that they had a generational talent on their hands, so they took some of Beyonce's stem cells as an insurance policy. The real Beyonce died in 2000, and the executives used her stem cells to make a clone and keep the gravy train rolling. Yep. Beyonce's entire solo career has been nothing but a farce, the result of manipulative businessmen and futuristic cloning technology.
Greetings, citizens of the world. This is Anonymous. The United Kingdom has fallen. It's fallen to fear, to silence, to authoritarianism. In the past 48 hours, multiple reports have emerged of UK citizens, activists, journalists, ordinary people being visited by law enforcement simply for speaking out against the Online Safety Act. This is not safety, this is censorship. Let us be clear, this legislation was never about protecting people. It is a calculated attack on freedom, cloaked in the language of safety. Governments have always used fear to justify control, and this is no different. Now, as awareness spreads and people turn to VPNs to shield themselves from government surveillance, the UK government floats the idea of banning them altogether. The Labour Party, poised to enforce this next step, hides behind the pretense of security, but what they are doing is nothing less than digital censorship. The Online Safety Act has become a digital iron curtain. Its purpose to monitor, to intimidate, and to silence dissent. Surveillance at home, censorship online, and a government increasingly hostile to its own people. Anonymous stands with those who refuse to be silenced. We see you, we hear you, and we will not let your voices be erased. To the UK government, the more you tighten your grip, the more voices will rise against you. This is not over. Expect us.
As Q said, trust the plan. We're living through a movie, and it's fascinating to watch the tribunals unfold. It's like a real-life thriller, where President Trump seems to be a key player, navigating this intricate plot in real time. Every twist and turn raises the stakes, and it's clear he's aware of the bigger picture. But the real question is, how long will this drama last? Will we see the climax soon, or is there more to come? Each day brings new revelations, and it feels like we're on the edge of our seats, waiting for the next act to unfold.
Live on TV, and yet no one else is talking about this video. And honestly, I'm not supposed to show you guys this, but if you could stomach it, I'll show you. Now, to give you guys some backstory, in case you guys don't know who this is Oprah Winfrey, literally one of the biggest talk show hosts in the world, and has created her brand around this ability to ask thought-provoking questions to her guests. Questions that no one else would ask, but yet everybody was thinking. And that's how she grew popular and accumulating over $3 billion because of this skill. But because we were caught up in the accolades, failed to realize what truly goes on behind the scenes. Countless people have come out and speculated that Oprah really behind the scenes is cruel and just evil. And people will even go to the extent saying that Oprah works for the Illuminati. And sometimes it's obvious because of the things that she says.
I have said for years, if the abuser is any good, you won't even know it's happened. You will be in it and you won't even know it's happened. And if the abuser is any good, he or she is going to make you feel like you're a part of it. I mean, and nothing is more being a part of it than what we discussed earlier.
Dan Bongino. He says, I have never been the same since discovering that the ritual abuse of children was going all around us at all given times. And neither will you be able to stay in your bubble of denial after seeing the documents that Trump was about to put out worldwide. Okay? Now, worldwide military raids detonated. Gitmo overflowing, 7 nations purged. Tribunals unleashed, hybrid labs are being exposed. And these are children that are in pods. They were in pods, they were being, I don't even know. I don't even want to go down that road, but I'm just telling you, there's some really ugly stuff out there. Tunnel raids. Starlink is targeting escape crafts that they're trying to, get off the planet. And Starlink is targeting them, and they're being taken out as we speak. Okay? Military purges of the deep state was in full, unstoppable force. The mission isn't slowing, it's exploding. Raids across 71 nations and 14 oceanic zones have been shattering the globalist infrastructure. 2,900 elite level executives of high corporations have been arrested in the last 30 days. Okay? And like I said before, the deep state is mortally wounded, but he's still got teeth, and he's still wanting to burn and scorch earth, our beautiful planet we live on, our ecosystem, any way they can, because they know that they are dying and they want to take out as many people as possible. So keep your head on a swivel. Gitmo has expanded many black site locations such as Alaska, Diego Garcia, Greenland, Iceland, and Svalbard. Processing, non-stop interrogation, takedowns, and tribunals. Clinton kill list confirms 51 dead associates, now confirmed, that are directly tied to the Clintons. Big Pharma, foreign profiteers engineered $3 trillion scam against the American people. The state of Georgia certified now had voters 300,000 more votes than the population of the whole state of Georgia. This is election fraud. Okay, so Congress has passed financial resets phase timeline, which closed the Federal Reserve and IRS, so they're both shut down. Okay, now I just want to mention while I'm on this part, the Federal Reserve, what's his name, Powell, has resigned. Okay, he's resigned, and they are in the midst, and that wasn't shown on media, mainstream media, and they are totally complicit and involved in all this child trafficking by covering it all up. They will go down hard. Okay, so military purge, the deep state was in full unstoppable force. I've already gone through that. Some stuff I've had to dub over. Sorry about that. Now, the new rates that are coming out on the foreign exchange, which is the foreign currencies, are being unfolded right now, and I believe there's Chase and JP Morgan are negotiating the dinar rate between $8 and $25 on an international basis. Now, all other countries that are tied with the dinar in the first basket or second or whatever it is are going to be going about the same time. They're not going to take, everybody's waiting for Iraq to go, and people are asking, well, why Iraq? Well, number one, Iraq is the oldest country in the world. Number two, it was invaded twice by the deep state and torn down and ripped apart, and they should take priority based on the crucifixion, the crucifying episode that the deep state did on them. Okay, so now I can tell with assurance we are across the finish line and have been for a little time now. Info came from various big players in this journey, and they are now in Reno, Miami, and the info came to them came from the top. They said all is to begin on your Monday, which, that's the 28th, but who really knows, right? The dinar rate for JP Morgan and Chase banks across the board range between $3 and $25 per note. JP Morgan Chase still are in negotiation about that. Breaking. Trump is about to detonate the Pentagon's dirty secrets. 7 failed audits. Billions following into trillions missing in corrupt. And this is blasphemy. This is what they want to call a headshot, whatever they want to call it. Anyways, so leaked 1985 letter from the IRS commissioner exposed the 16th Amendment as a fraud, and income tax was never legal. $330 trillion have been stolen. Time to fight back by stop paying your fucking taxes, please. I've been preaching about this for more than 10 years now. Now, the 2.5 to 3.1 as what Trump had noted. The federal bunker, powered by the Executive Order 13961, 13818, to launch a new sovereign currency and silent the old Treasury Fiat dollar forever. Okay?
This war isn't just a clash of armies, it's a battle between good and evil. At its core, it's about the innocent lives caught in the crossfire, especially our children. Every day, countless kids suffer from the consequences of conflict, abuse, neglect, and trauma that can last a lifetime. We must remember that their future hangs in the balance. It's our responsibility to stand up against this injustice and protect the most vulnerable among us. Let's not turn a blind eye. Together we can make a difference.
If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know what content you love. So, like and subscribe.